hold on to your seats, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you think you know about justice, family, and the power of love. A 68-year-old black woman sits in a courtroom, trembling, about to receive a life sentence for crimes that could destroy her forever. The jury has spoken. The gavel is raised. Her fate is sealed. But then, 3 men burst through those courtroom doors with evidence that will flip this entire story on its head. And here's the twist that will blow your mind. These aren't just random lawyers. They're the 3 homeless kids she rescued 25 years ago, now returned to save the woman who gave them everything. But before we dive into this incredible journey, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because stories like this, stories that restore your faith in humanity, are exactly what this channel is about. And trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end, because the twist in this story will leave you speechless. I guarantee it. Also, drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in Delilah's situation. Would you have taken in 3 homeless children when you barely had enough for yourself? Your answer might surprise you. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, to a moment that would change 5 lives forever. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago. The sky is black as midnight, rain hammering against the courthouse windows like bullets. The storm outside mirrors the chaos about to unfold inside Courtroom 4B, where the air is thick with tension, so heavy you could cut it with a knife. At the defendant's table sits Delilah Peterson, 68 years old, silver-haired, wearing a worn blue dress that's seen better days. Her hands shake as she grips the edge of the table, knuckles white with fear. This woman, who spent her entire life helping others, is about to be branded a monster by a justice system that's supposed to protect the innocent. The prosecutor, Marcus Whitfield, a man with dead eyes and a smile that could freeze hell, stand before the jury like a predator circling wounded prey. This isn't just any prosecutor. Folks, this is a man who's built his entire career on destroying lives, and today he's going for his biggest victory yet. His voice cuts through the silence like a razor as he delivers his closing argument. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what we have here is not a caring woman, but a calculated predator. Delilah Peterson didn't save these children. She exploited them. She used their vulnerability, their desperation, their trust, for her own twisted financial gain. Can you imagine the audacity? This man is standing there, painting a picture of Delilah as some kind of criminal mastermind who preyed on helpless children. But here's what makes this even more sickening. The evidence he's presenting seems ironclad. Bank records showing mysterious deposits totaling over $500,000. Fingerprints at crime scenes. Security footage that appears to show Delilah in places she swears she's never been. And if you're wondering how this is possible, stick around, because the truth behind this evidence will shock you to your core. Make sure you're subscribed, because you're not going to want to miss a single detail of how deep this conspiracy goes. Look at Delilah's face as she listens to these accusations. 25 years of sacrifice, 25 years of unconditional love, being twisted into something dark and evil. Her eyes fill with tears, but she doesn't make a sound. She's been fighting this battle for 8 grueling months, watching her reputation, her freedom, and her hopes slip away piece by piece. The prosecutor continues his character assassination. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Financial fraud spanning multiple years. Money laundering through dozens of shell accounts. Identity theft. Child exploitation. And most damning of all, the cold-blooded murder of Eddie Costanos, a man who was simply trying to protect these children from her systematic abuse. Wait. Eddie Costanos? That name should send chills down your spine, and I want you to remember it, because this man's story is far more twisted and evil than anyone in that courtroom realizes. This is a monster who started it all, and his shadow has been haunting Delilah for 25 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to Eddie's horrific crimes in just a moment. The jury files out to deliberate. 12 ordinary people. A teacher, a mechanic, a nurse, a retired construction worker, and others who hold Delilah's entire future in their hands. These people have no idea that they're being manipulated by evidence so expertly fabricated that even forensic experts were fooled. The wait is excruciating. For hours and 17 minutes. Delilah sits there in that uncomfortable wooden chair, probably thinking about those 3 little boys she found shivering in an alley all those years ago. Danny, with his fierce protective instincts. Mike, with his gentle healing heart. Timmy, with his brilliant mind and quiet strength. Did she make the right choice that night? Was saving them worth losing everything? These are the questions that torment her as she waits for a jury to decide whether she'll die behind bars. When the jury finally returns, You can hear a pin drop in that courtroom. The foreman, a middle-aged man who looks like he hasn't slept in days, stands with a piece of paper that will determine everything. We, the jury, find the defendant, Delilah Peterson, guilty on all counts of financial fraud in the first degree, money laundering, identity theft, child endangerment, and murder in the first degree. The gasps that echo through the courtroom sound like gunshots. Delilah's shoulders slump forward, as if the weight of the world just crashed down on her. This is it. This is how her story ends. Not as a hero who saved 3 abandoned children, but as a convicted killer about to spend whatever time she is left rotting in a cell. Judge Harrison, a stern man with 30 years on the bench and a reputation for harsh sentences, looks down at her. His weathered face shows no emotion, but something flickers in his eyes. Is it pity? Disgust? Disappointment? It's impossible to tell. Mrs. Peterson, you've been found guilty of crimes that shock the conscience of this community. These are serious charges that carry severe penalties. Before I pass sentence, do you have anything to say in your defense? The courtroom falls silent again. Every eye is on Delilah as she slowly, painfully rises to her feet. Her legs barely support her weight after sitting in that chair for months, listening to lie after lie destroy everything she's worked for. When she speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper, but it carries the weight of absolute truth. Your Honor, I love those boys like they were my own flesh and blood. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made, every choice I made, I did protect them and give them a chance at life. If loving children who had nowhere else to go makes me guilty of something, then I guess I'll have to live with that judgment. The raw honesty in her voice brings tears to the eyes of several spectators. But Judge Harrison's expression doesn't change. He's heard countless defendants proclaim their innocence over the years. Mrs. Peterson, this court has heard the evidence presented by both sides. The jury has spoken. The crimes you've been convicted of are heinous and unforgivable. This court sentences you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. You will be remanded to the custody of the Illinois Department of Corrections immediately. Life without parole. For a 68-year-old woman, that's essentially a death sentence. She'll never see another Christmas outside of prison walls. She'll never sit in her garden again. The bailiffs move toward her, handcuffs gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Delilah closes her eyes, probably saying a final prayer, accepting that this is how her story ends. She's given up fighting. After 8 months of watching the system fail her, she has nothing left. But then, just as the bailiff reaches for her wrists, something miraculous happens. Your Honor. The voice booms from the back of the courtroom like thunder. Every head whips around toward the massive oak doors as they swing open with dramatic force. 3 men stride into the courtroom like they own the place, and immediately you can feel the shift in energy. These aren't just any men. These are successful, powerful men, and you can see it in everything about them. The way they walk with absolute confidence, the expensive tailored suits that probably cost more than most people make in a month, the commanding presence that makes everyone in the room sit up and pay attention. The first man is tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that makes people automatically step aside. His skin is the color of rich mahogany, his hair is perfectly styled, and his eyes burn with intensity that could melt steel. This is clearly a man who's used to winning, used to fighting impossible battles and coming out on top. The second man moves with the fluid grace of someone who spent his life healing others. His hands, you notice, are surgeon's hands, steady, precise, gentle yet strong. There's something almost ethereal about the way he carries himself, like he's seen death and brought people back from its grip. The third man has a quiet intensity of someone who's solved problems most people can't even imagine. He's smaller than the other 2, but there's something in his eyes, a brilliant, calculating intelligence that misses nothing. You get the feeling this man could hack into the Pentagon computers while eating breakfast. The tall man steps forward, and when he speaks, his voice carries the authority of someone who's argued before the Supreme Court. Your Honor, my name is Daniel Morrison, civil rights attorney with Morrison, Blake & Associates. These are my brothers, Dr. Michael Chun, Chief of Trauma Surgery at Johns Hopkins, and Timothy Rodriguez, CEO and founder of Rodriguez Tech Solutions. The prosecutor's face goes white as a sheet. Judge Harrison nearly falls out his chair. The court reporter's hands freeze over a keyboard. And Delilah, for the first time in 8 months, hope flickers in her eyes like a candle in the darkness. Daniel Morrison continues, his voice growing stronger with each word. We're here because that woman you just sentenced is not a criminal, Your Honor. She's not a murderer or a fraud or a child abuser. She's our mother, the only mother we've ever known. And we have evidence, substantial, undeniable evidence. that will prove this entire trial was built on a foundation of lies, fabricated evidence, and corruption that reaches the highest levels of the city's power structure. The courtroom erupts. People are standing, shouting, trying to make sense of what they're hearing. The prosecutor is frantically shuffling through papers, looking like a man who's just seen a ghost. Judge Harrison is banging his gavel, trying to restore order, but the chaos is beautiful and terrible all at once. But here's where it gets really incredible, and this is exactly why you need to smash that subscribe button and share this video with everyone you know. These three men aren't just random successful professionals who happen to show up. They're living, breathing proof of what happens when one person's love changes everything. They're the lost boys who became kings, and they've come home to save their queen. Now, I need to take you back 25 years to a night when three terrified, broken children and one struggling woman created a miracle that would echo through the decades. Because to understand how we got to this moment, you need to see where it all began. You need to witness the night that changed everything. Chicago, November 1998. Bill Clinton is dealing with impeachment hearings. Titanic just became the highest-grossing movie of all time, and the world feels full of possibilities. But not for everyone. Not for the forgotten ones living in the shadows of America's dream. On Cottage Grove Avenue, in a neighborhood where hope goes to die and dreams get buried under poverty and neglect, the rain falls like tears from a broken sky. It's 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. The kind of bone-deep cold that seeps through your clothes and settles in your soul like a permanent ache. Delilah Peterson, just 43 years old then, hurries down the sidewalk with her head down against the wind. Her worn coat, the same one she's had for 5 years because she can't afford a new one, is pulled tight against her thin frame. She's just finished her second job of the day, cleaning offices downtown until her hands are raw and her back screams in protest. You see, Delilah's husband Marcus died 3 years earlier from a heart attack at age 39. No insurance, no savings, just a mountain of medical debt, and a widow trying to figure out how to survive in a world that doesn't care about struggling black women. She works 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves at a grocery store during the day, just to keep her tiny apartment and put food on the table. She's walking past Buchanan Elementary School, thinking about the bills piling up on her kitchen table, when she hears it, a sound that stops her dead in her tracks. It's soft at first, almost lost in the sound of rain hitting concrete, but unmistakable once you hear it. Crying, a child crying. Now, most people would keep walking. It's late. It's dangerous, and getting involved in other people's problems is a luxury poor folks can't afford. But Delilah isn't most people. She's never been able to walk past suffering without stopping, even when stopping might cost her everything. She follows the sound around the back of the school, where a narrow alley runs between the building and a chain-link fence. And there, huddled together behind a dumpster, like wounded animals, she finds them. 3 boys. The oldest looks maybe 12, with skin that's ashy from cold and hunger, wearing a torn jacket 3 sizes too big. His arm is wrapped protectively around a boy who can't be more than 8, whose face is swollen and bruised like someone's been using him as a punching bag. The youngest, maybe 7 years old, is the one crying, quiet, desperate sobs that break your heart into a million pieces. They're soaked to the bone, shivering uncontrollably, and when Delilah's footsteps splash in a puddle, all 3 of them look up with the kind of terror you only see in the eyes of children who've learned that adults are dangerous. "Hey there, babies," Delilah says softly, kneeling down in the dirty water, without caring about her work uniform. "What are y'all doing out here in this storm?" The oldest boy, this is Danny, though she doesn't know his name yet, immediately pushes the younger 2 behind him. His young face is hard with suspicion and fear, but also with a fierce protectiveness that reminds Delilah of a mother lion guarding her cubs. "We ain't doing nothing wrong, lady. Just leave us alone." But Delilah sees what Danny's trying to hide. These aren't just homeless kids. These are abused kids. The middle boy, Mike, has bruises on his arms that look like fingerprints. The youngest, Timmy, flinches every time an adult moves too quickly. And all 3 of them are so thin you can see their ribs through their soaked clothes. "I'm not here to hurt you, sweetheart," Delilah says, her voice gentle as rain on leaves. "But you boys are going to freeze to death out here. When's the last time you had something to eat?" The question hits them like a physical blow. Timmy's crying gets a little louder, and Mike's stomach actually growls loud enough for Delilah to hear. Danny tries to maintain his tough guy facade, but his eyes betray him. These children are starving. "We don't need nothing from nobody," Danny says, but his voice cracks on the words. "We take care of ourselves." Now here's the moment. Folks, That changes everything. This is a crossroads where most people would make excuses, call social services maybe, and walk away feeling like they'd done their civic duty. But Delilah looks at these 3 broken babies, and she sees her own childhood staring back at her. You see, Delilah grew up in foster care herself, bounced from home to home, never staying anywhere long enough to feel safe, never finding adults who saw her as anything more than a monthly check from the state. She knows exactly what it feels like to be small and scared and completely alone in the world. "How long y'all been out here?" she asks. This time, it's Mike who answers, his voice barely audible. "Few weeks, maybe? Since they took us from the last house." "What happened at the last house?" The boys exchange glances, and Delilah sees a lifetime of trauma pass between them in that single look. Finally, Timmy whispers, "The man hurt us. He hurt us real bad." And right there, in that flooded alley behind an elementary school, Delilah Peterson makes a decision that will change 5 lives forever. She stands up, her knees protesting after kneeling in the cold water, and extends her hand to Danny. "Come on, babies. Let's go home." "We ain't going nowhere with you," Danny says, but there's less conviction in his voice now. He's 12 years old, and he's tired of being strong. He's tired of being responsible for his younger brothers. He's tired of being cold and hungry, and scared every single second of every single day. "Look," Delilah says, pulling her thin wallet from her pocket. She opens it and shows him the contents. $12.37. Everything she has in the world until her next paycheck. "This is all the money I got. I ain't rich. I ain't got much. But I got a warm apartment and some soup on the stove and a couch y'all can sleep on tonight. I ain't asking you to trust me forever. Just trust me for one night." She sees the exact moment when Danny's resolve breaks. His tough guy mask slips, and underneath it, she sees what he really is, a terrified child who's been carrying the weight of the world on his narrow shoulders. "Just one night?" he asks. "Just one night," Delilah promises, though something deep inside her knows she's lying. She already knows she can't let these boys go back to the streets. She already knows she's about to turn her simple, struggling life upside down for 3 children she met 5 minutes ago. Mike is the first to step forward. Even at 8 years old, he has the instincts of a healer, and he recognizes genuine compassion when he sees it. Timmy follows his brother, still sniffling but no longer sobbing. And finally, reluctantly, Danny takes Delilah's outstretched hand. The walk to Delilah's apartment takes 15 minutes through streets that grow progressively more dangerous as the night gets later. She lives in a 3-story walk-up that's seen better decades, with a hallway smell like old grease and broken dreams. Her apartment is on the 2nd floor, 2B, and when she opens the door, the boys step into a world they haven't seen in months. It's not much. The furniture is secondhand and mismatched. The carpet has stains that tell stories of previous tenant struggles. The wallpaper is peeling in places, and the radiator makes sounds like a dying animal. But it's warm, it's clean, and for the first time in weeks, these 3 boys are safe. "Bathroom's down the hall," Delilah says, hanging up her coat. "Y'all go get cleaned up while I heat up some food." While the boys take turns in the tiny bathroom, marveling at hot water and clean towels, Delilah stands in her kitchen and performs her own miracle. She's got exactly 1 can of soup in the cupboard, some day-old bread from the store, and 3 pieces of leftover fried chicken from her lunch 2 days ago. It's not much, but she stretches it, adds some love and seasoning, and creates a feast fit for kings. When the boys emerge from the bathroom, they're transformed. Clean and warm, they look younger somehow, more vulnerable. Danny tries to maintain his protective stance, but Mike and Timmy are openly staring at the food on the table like it's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. "Sit down, babies. Eat up." And they do. They eat like they're afraid someone's going to take the food away, barely chewing, stuffing their mouths until their cheeks bulge. Delilah watches them, and her heart breaks and heals at the same time. When was the last time anyone fed these children? When was the last time anyone called them baby or sweetheart instead of burden or problem? "Slow down, honey," she says gently to Timmy, who's trying to swallow a piece of bread that's too big. The food ain't going nowhere. There's plenty. But even as she says it, Delilah knows she's lying again. There isn't plenty. After this meal, her cupboards will be bare until she can buy groceries with her next paycheck in 5 days. She'll have to skip meals to make sure these boys eat. She'll have to work extra hours to pay for 3 more mouths. She'll have to sacrifice in ways she can't even imagine yet. But watching Timmy slow down, Watching Mike smile for the first time, watching Danny's shoulders finally relax as he realizes he doesn't have to guard the food or his brothers. It's worth it. It's worth everything. After dinner, Delilah sets the boys up on her couch with every blanket and pillow she owns. The couch is barely big enough for two of them, so they curl up together like puppies, seeking warmth and comfort from each other. She's about to turn off the lights when Timmy's small voice stops her. "Miss Delilah? What is it, baby? You really gonna let us stay the whole night?" The question breaks her heart because it reveals just how many adults have already failed these children. How many promises have been broken? How many times have they been told they could stay somewhere safe, only to be kicked out when they became inconvenient? "I promised you could stay the night, didn't I?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you can stay the night." "I keep my promises, baby boy. Always." Timmy smiles, the first real smile she's seen from any of them, and closes his eyes. Within minutes, all three boys are asleep, their faces peaceful in a way that tells Delilah they haven't slept soundly in months. But Delilah doesn't sleep. She sits in her kitchen chair, staring at her empty refrigerator and her pile of bills, try to figure out how she's going to make this work. Because she already knows, deep in her heart, that she can't send these boys back to the streets tomorrow. She can't let them disappear back into a system that's already failed them so completely. She thinks about her own childhood, bouncing from foster home to foster home, never belonging anywhere, never feeling wanted or loved. She remembers the social workers who saw her as just another case file, the foster parents who collected kids like paychecks, the feeling of being completely disposable in a world that didn't care if she lived or died. These boys deserve better. Every child deserves better. And if she's the only one willing to give it to them, then that's what she'll do. Around 3 a.m., she hears movement in the living room. Danny is awake, sitting up on the couch, staring at the front door like he's expecting someone to burst through it. Even in sleep, he can't fully relax his guard. "Can't sleep, sweetheart?" Danny jumps, startled, in the dim light from the kitchen. He looks even younger than his 12 years. "I was just making sure Timmy and Mike were okay." Delilah walks over and sits on the edge of the coffee table, facing him. "They're safe here, Danny. You're all safe here." That's what they said at the last place, too. His voice is bitter with betrayal and disappointment. And the place before that. Adults always say we're safe until we become too much trouble. I'm not those other adults. How do I know that? It's a fair question, and Delilah doesn't have a good answer. How do you prove trustworthiness to someone whose trust has been shattered so many times? How do you convince a 12-year-old boy that you're different when his entire life experience tells him that adults lie? "I guess you don't know," she says finally. "I guess I'll just have to show you, day by day, choice by choice, until you believe it." Danny stares at her for a long moment, trying to read her face in the darkness. What if we can't find anywhere else to go? What if nobody wants us? And there it is, the question that's been hanging in the air since she found them in that alley. The question that will determine not just their future, but hers as well. "Then I guess you'll stay here. But you don't got enough money for us. I heard you on the phone earlier, talking about bills." Smart kid. Too smart for his own good. Probably. "We'll figure it out, baby. Somehow we'll figure it out." "Why?" The word comes out like a whisper, like he's afraid to ask it. "Why would you do that for us? You don't even know us." Delilah reaches out and gently touches his cheek, and for a moment, Danny lets her. Because everybody deserves someone who'll fight for them, Danny. Everybody deserves to feel wanted and loved and safe. And maybe I need y'all just as much as y'all need me. It's the truth, though she's just now realizing it. Since Marcus died, she's been going through the motions of living without actually living. Working, paying bills, sleeping, repeat. But these boys, scared and broken as they are, they're bringing something back to life inside her. Purpose. Hope. A reason to fight for something bigger than just survival. Danny considers this and finally nods. "Okay, but if you change your mind..." "I won't." "Promise?" "I promise, Danny. I promise." The next morning arrives gray and cold, but inside apartment 2B, something warm is beginning to grow. Delilah wakes up on her own bed. She gave the boys a bedroom and slept on the floor to the sound of quiet voices in the kitchen. She finds Mike and Timmy at her tiny table, sharing a piece of toast. Mike is carefully tearing off small pieces and giving them to his younger brother, making sure Timmy gets the bigger portions. The sight of an 8-year-old caring for a 7-year-old with such tenderness brings tears to her eyes. "Morning, babies. Y'all hungry?" "We found the bread," Mike says quickly, like he's confessing to a crime. I know we weren't supposed to take it without asking, but Timmy was really hungry, and I thought maybe... Honey, you don't have to ask permission to eat when you're hungry. This is your home now. The words slip out before she can stop them, and all three boys freeze. Danny, who's been standing guard by the window, turns around slowly. Our home, he asks. Delilah realizes she's just committed herself completely, irrevocably, to a path that will change everything. But looking at these three beautiful, damaged children, she can't imagine making any other choice. If you want to be, she says, if you want to stay, you can stay, for as long as you need to. The silence that follows is pregnant with possibility and terror. These boys have been hurt so many times by adults who made promises they didn't keep. How can they possibly believe that this stranger, this woman who found them in an alley, really means what she's saying? It's Timmy who breaks first. He launches himself from his chair and wraps his thin arms around Delilah's waist, burying his face against her stomach. I want to stay, he whispers. Please, Miss Delilah, I want to stay. Mike is next, moving more slowly but with just as much desperate hope. And finally, reluctantly, Danny joins the group hug, his tough guy facade cracking to reveal the scared little boy underneath. We don't have nowhere else to go, he admits. Then you'll stay here, Delilah says, her own voice thick with emotion. We'll be a family. Maybe not the traditional kind, but a family nonetheless. And just like that, in a moment that takes less than 60 seconds, Delilah Peterson goes from being a struggling widow to being a single mother of three traumatized boys. She has no idea how she's going to feed them, clothe them, or keep them safe. She has no idea that there are forces already moving against them, powerful people who see these children as property rather than human beings. She has no idea that in taking in Danny, Mike, and Timmy, she's just declared war on a system that profits from broken children and forgotten families. She doesn't know about Eddie Costanos yet, or the nightmare that's coming for all of them. But in this moment, none of that matters. In this moment, three lost boys have found a mother, and one lonely woman has found her purpose. In this moment, love wins. That night, Delilah tucks all three boys into her bed. They refuse to be separated, too afraid that splitting up means losing each other, and sits in her kitchen, staring at a pile of bills she can no longer afford to pay in a refrigerator that's nearly empty. Tomorrow, she'll have to figure out how to stretch her groceries to feed 4 people instead of 1. She'll have to call in favors. She doesn't have to get the boys enrolled in school. She'll have to work more hours, while somehow being home enough to help them heal from whatever trauma brought them to that alley. Tomorrow, she'll start the fight of her life. But tonight, she listens to the sound of children breathing safely in her home, and she smiles. Because 24 hours ago, she was just surviving. Now she's living. Now she has something worth fighting for. She doesn't know it yet, but she's just planted the seeds of a miracle that will take 25 years to fully bloom. The 3 scared, broken boys sleeping in her bed will grow up to become the 3 powerful men who will one day burst through courtroom doors to save her life. But that's a story for another day. Right now, it's enough that they're safe. It's enough that they're home. It's enough that love has triumphed, if only for one night, in a world that too often forgets that every child deserves someone who will fight for them. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this story is far from over. The real challenges are just beginning, and what happens next will test everything Delilah thought she knew about sacrifice, family, and the true meaning of love. The storm is coming, and it has a name: Eddie Costanos. Now, if you thought taking in 3 traumatized children was the hard part, you're about to see just how wrong you are. Because what happens next will test Delilah's resolve in ways she never imagined. And it's going to show you exactly what real love looks like when it's put through the fire. But first, hit that like button if the story is already touching your heart, because what you're about to witness is pure magic, the transformation of 4 broken people into an unbreakable family. The first morning after the boys move in permanently, Delilah wakes up at 5 a.m. to a sound she hasn't heard in 3 years. Children's voices in her kitchen. But these aren't happy, carefree voices. These are whispered, worried conversations between kids who've learned that safety is temporary and adults change their minds. She finds Danny standing guard by the window again, while Mike tries to console a crying Timmy. The 7-year-old had a nightmare, the kind that leaves you shaking and afraid to close your eyes again. Bad dream, baby? Delilah asks softly, kneeling beside Timmy. The scary man came back, Timmy whispers. He said he was going to take us away from you. Danny's jaw tightens. I told him it was just a dream, but he won't listen. But Delilah sees the fear in Danny's eyes, too. He's trying to be strong for his brothers, but he's just as terrified that this new stability will be ripped away from them. Boys, look at me. She waits until all three are focused on her face. I need you to understand something, and I need you to really hear me. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. We're family now, and families stick together no matter what. Even if we get in trouble at school? Mike asks, even if we break something? Timmy adds, even if the state tries to take us away? Danny's question cuts right to the heart of their deepest fear. Even then, Delilah promises, I will fight for you boys until my last breath. That's what mothers do. It's the first time she's called herself their mother, and the word hangs in the air like a blessing and a vow. The next 6 months are a masterclass in making miracles happen with nothing but love and determination. Delilah's daily schedule becomes a carefully choreographed dance of survival. Up at 5 a.m. to pack lunches with whatever's in the cupboard, get the boys ready for school. And let me tell you, getting 3 traumatized kids to trust the education system is its own battle. Rush to her day job at the grocery store, work 8 hours on her feet, pick up the boys, help with homework she doesn't always understand, make dinner from ingredients that would challenge a professional chef, and then head to her night job cleaning offices. She's getting 4 hours of sleep on a good night, losing weight she can't afford to lose, and her body is screaming in protest. But every sacrifice is worth it when she sees the changes in her boys. Danny, the natural-born leader, starts to let his guard down. He joins the school basketball team. Not because they can afford the equipment, but because the coach sees something special in this kid and quietly provides what he needs. Danny's protective instincts don't disappear, but they evolve. Instead of just protecting Mike and Timmy from external threats, he starts protecting their dreams. He helps Timmy with his math homework, even though algebra makes Danny's head spin. He stands up to bullies who pick on Mike's gentle nature. Mike discovers he has healing hands in more ways than one. He finds an injured bird in the school courtyard and nurses it back to health with the kind of patience and compassion that amazes his teachers. He starts volunteering at the school nurse's office, learning to clean wounds and comfort scared kindergartners who scrape their knees. His teachers start talking about medical scholarships, about futures that seem impossible just months before. And Timmy, quiet, brilliant Timmy, finds his voice through technology. Delilah scrapes together enough money to buy him a used computer from a pawn shop, and it's like watching a flower bloom in fast forward. This kid who barely spoke above a whisper starts creating programs, building websites, solving problems that stump adults twice his age. But it's not just the boys who are transforming. Delilah is changing too. The lonely, grieving widow who is just going through the motions of living has found her purpose. Every challenge, every late-night worry session, every miracle she has performed to make ends meet, it all gives her life meaning in a way she hasn't felt since Marcus died. The neighbors think she's crazy. Mrs. Henderson from 2C makes comments about taking on other people's problems. Mr. Jackson from downstairs complains about the noise of children playing. But Delilah doesn't care, because for the first time in years, her apartment feels like a home instead of just a place to exist. Their first Christmas together is pure magic, created from absolutely nothing. Delilah has exactly $37 for presents after paying rent and utilities. But she stays up all night for a week, using her limited sewing skills to make each boy something special. Danny gets a basketball jersey she sews from scratch, using fabric from an old dress. Mike gets a first aid kit she puts together piece by piece from dollar store supplies. Timmy gets a journal where he can write down all his computer ideas and dreams. The boys pool their allowance, the 50 cents each they earn for doing chores, to buy Delilah a coffee mug from a thrift store that says World's Best Mom. It's chipped and the lettering is fading, but when Delilah opens that gift, she cries like it's made of pure gold. But not every day is Christmas morning. There are setbacks that would break most families, like when Danny gets suspended for fighting, and Delilah has to leave work to pick him up from school, losing a day's pay they desperately need. She expects to find a troublemaker, but instead she finds a 12-year-old boy with split knuckles and tears of rage in his eyes. They said Mike was going to end up dead or in jail, because that's what happens to kids like us. Danny explains through gritted teeth. They said we were charity cases, and you were just going to give up on us when we got too expensive. Delilah's heart breaks and swells with pride at the same time. Her boy was fighting for his family's honor, defending his brothers against cruel words that cut deeper than any physical wound. Danny, baby, you can't fight every person who says something stupid about our family. Why not? The question comes out like a challenge. You fight for us every single day. And he's right. She does fight for them every single day, in ways both big and small. She fights the school system that wants to put them in remedial classes just because they're former foster kids. She fights the social workers who keep showing up, convinced that a poor single woman can't possibly provide adequate care for 3 boys. She fights her own exhaustion and doubt, and the voice in her head that sometimes whispers that she's in over her head. The breakthrough moment comes 8 months after they became a family. It's a Tuesday night, and Delilah is at the kitchen table with her calculator and a stack of bills, trying to figure out how to make $63 stretch until Friday's paycheck. The math isn't working. It never works. But somehow, they always manage to eat, always manage to keep the lights on, always manage to find a way. Miss Delilah? Timmy appears in the doorway, clutching his worn stuffed animal, a one-eyed bear that's been his comfort since before she found him. What is it, baby? Are we going to be okay? It's the question she's been dreading, because she honestly doesn't know the answer. Financially, they're hanging by a thread. Emotionally, they're all still healing from traumas that run deeper than she fully understands. Practically, she's one major crisis away from losing everything. But looking at the 7-year-old boy who's learned to worry about adult problems, she realizes that being okay isn't about having enough money or perfect circumstances. Being okay is about love, safety, and belonging. And those are the only things she's never run short of. Yeah, baby boy, we're going to be okay. We're going to be better than okay. We're going to be a family. Timmy climbs onto her lap, and they sit together in the dim light of the kitchen, surrounded by unpaid bills and impossible mathematics, but also surrounded by something much more powerful: unshakable love. The next morning brings a miracle in the form of Danny's basketball coach, Coach Williams. He shows up at their door with news that changes everything. Mrs. Peterson, I've been watching Danny play, and this kid has college potential. Real college potential. There's a private academy across town that want to offer him a full scholarship. Not just for high school, but they've got connections to Division I colleges. Delilah's heart soars and breaks at the same time. This is everything she's dreamed of for Danny, but the academy is an hour away by bus. How can she afford the transportation? How can she manage her work schedule around his new requirements? Ma'am, Coach Williams continues, reading her expression, the scholarship covers everything. Tuition, books, uniforms, even transportation. They want to invest in Danny's future. But the real miracle isn't the scholarship. It's what happens when she tells the boys about the opportunity. She expects Danny to be excited, but instead, he looks terrified. What about Mike and Timmy? What about our family? Baby, this doesn't change our family. This just gives you opportunities to make all of us proud. But what if I go to this fancy school and I don't fit in? What if they figure out I'm just a poor kid from foster care? Delilah takes Danny's face in her hands, looking directly into his eyes. You listen to me, Daniel Morrison. She started using the last name Morrison for all of them, a name that represents her new beginning. You are not just anything. You are brilliant. You are strong. You are worthy of every opportunity that comes your way. And if anyone at that school can't see that, then they're the ones with the problem, not you. It's Mike who seals the deal. Danny, you have to go. You have to show the world what kids like us can do. You have to prove that just because we started in a bad place doesn't mean we can't end up somewhere amazing. And Timmy adds, with wisdom that shouldn't exist in a 7-year-old. Besides, we'll still be brothers no matter what school you go to. Family isn't about being in the same place. It's about loving each other no matter where we are. The day Danny starts at Jefferson Academy is both triumph and terror. He puts on his new uniform, the first new clothes he's ever owned, and stands in front of the mirror like he's preparing for battle. In a way, he is. He's about to enter a world of privilege and opportunity that seems designed to remind him he doesn't belong. But Delilah has prepared him for this battle in ways that go beyond academics. She's taught him that his worth isn't determined by his bank account or his zip code. She's shown him that dignity comes within, and that love is the most powerful force in the universe. The first few months are rough. Danny calls home crying after particularly bad days, when classmates make comments about his secondhand backpack, or when he realizes his family's financial struggles are different from anything his new friends have experienced. But Delilah talks him through every crisis, reminding him why he's there and what he's fighting for. And slowly, incredibly, Danny doesn't just survive at Jefferson Academy. He thrives. His grades put him at the top of his class. His basketball skills make him a star athlete. But more importantly, his character makes him a leader. He starts a mentoring program for younger students. He organizes charity drives for homeless shelters. He becomes living proof that where you come from doesn't determine where you can go. Meanwhile, Mike is having his own breakthrough. His volunteer work at the school nurse's office catches the attention of Dr. Sarah Chun, a pediatrician who visits the school regularly. She sees something special in this 8-year-old who can calm a panicking child better than most trained professionals. Has anyone ever talked to you about becoming a doctor? Dr. Chin asks Mike one afternoon. Mike's eyes go wide. Doctors have to be really smart. I'm just good at helping people feel better. That's exactly what doctors do, Mike. They help people feel better. And being smart isn't just about knowing medical facts. It's about understanding people, having compassion, wanting to heal. You have all those things already. Dr. Chin starts mentoring Mike, bringing him medical books written for children, teaching him basic anatomy, showing him what a day in the life of a doctor really looks like. Mike absorbs it all like a sponge, but more than that, he starts dreaming bigger than he ever thought possible. And Timmy, brilliant, quiet Timmy, is creating miracles with that old computer. He builds a website for the local community center that brings in more donations in 1 month than they usually see in a year. He creates a program that helps elderly residents track their medications. His teachers start using terms like genius and prodigy, but Delilah teaches him that intelligence is a gift that should be used to help others. By the time their first year as a family is complete, the transformation is stunning. 3 broken boys have become confident, capable young men with dreams that stretch beyond anything they could have imagined. And 1 struggling widow has become a mother whose love has literally changed the trajectory of 4 lives. But here's what you need to understand, and this is crucial to everything that happens next. Their happiness, their success, their growing family bond. All of it is being watched by someone who sees their joy as a threat to his power. Eddie Costanos hasn't forgotten about the 3 boys who escaped his grasp. He hasn't forgotten about the woman who dared to stand between him and his property. And he's been spending the last year planning his revenge. Because you see, Eddie isn't just some random criminal who preys on children. He's part of a much larger, much more sinister network. A network that profits from broken families, that sees vulnerable children as commodities to be bought and sold, that views love and healing as disruptions to their business model. And Delilah Peterson, with her fierce love and stubborn determination to give 3 throwaway kids a chance at life, has just declared war on that entire system, without even knowing it. If you've been wondering when this heartwarming family story was going to take a dark turn, well, buckle up, because you're about to meet pure evil in a perfectly tailored suit. And I guarantee you, Eddie Costanos is going to make your skin crawl in ways that will have you looking over your shoulder for weeks. But before we dive into this nightmare, make sure you've hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to reveal about Eddie and his network is going to connect that you didn't even know existed. This isn't just about one bad man. This is about a system so corrupt, so perfectly designed to prey on society's most vulnerable, that it will change how you see missing children cases forever. Also, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had that feeling that something was too good to last? That moment when you're finally happy, but you can sense danger lurking just around the corner? Because that's exactly where Delilah and her boys are right now, and they have no idea what's coming for them. It starts with small things. Things so subtle that if you weren't paying attention, you'd miss them completely. A car parked across the street that's different every day, but always occupied by someone who seems to be watching their building. Phone calls that ring twice and then hang up. Mail that arrives opened, as if someone's been reading it before it reaches their door. Delilah notices, but she tells herself she's being paranoid. After all, she's a single black woman raising 3 boys in a neighborhood where being noticed by the wrong people can be dangerous. A little paranoia keeps you alive in places like this. But then the calls start getting more aggressive. The phone rings at 2 a.m., and when Delilah answers, there's just breathing on the other end. Heavy, deliberate breathing. Like someone wants to know they're there, wants her to know she's being watched. Who keeps calling, Mama Delilah? Timmy asks one morning after a particularly bad night. She started calling herself Mama Delilah, and the boys have started calling her Mama or Mom more often than Miss Delilah. It's a small change that represents something huge. They're really, truly a family now. Just somebody with the wrong number, baby. Don't you worry about it. But Delilah is worried. She's more than worried. She's starting to feel hunted. And that feeling intensifies when she comes home from work one evening to find their apartment door slightly ajar. Just an inch. Just enough to make it clear that someone's been inside. Nothing is missing. Nothing is obviously disturbed. But there are small signs that someone has been through their things. Books on Timmy's shelf are in a slightly different order. Mike's medical books have been moved. Danny's basketball trophies are turned at different angles. Did y'all leave the door unlocked today? She asked the boys, trying to keep her voice calm. No, ma'am. Danny says immediately, I checked it twice like you taught me. That night, Delilah doesn't sleep at all. She sits in her kitchen chair with a baseball bat across her lap, listening to every sound, watching every shadow. Someone is playing games with her family, and she has no idea who or why. The answer comes on a Thursday afternoon in the form of a man who looks like he stepped out of a magazine advertisement for success. Expensive suit, perfect hair, smile that belongs on a politician's campaign poster. He's standing outside the grocery store where Delilah works, and when she comes out after his shift, he's waiting for her. Delilah Peterson? His voice is smooth as silk and cold as winter. Who's asking? My name is Eddie Costanos. I believe you have something that belongs to me. The name hits her like a physical blow. This is the man from a boy's nightmares. This is the monster they were running from when she found him in that alley. But seeing him in person, she's struck by how ordinary he looks. Evil, it turns out, doesn't always announce itself with horns and a pitchfork. Sometimes it wears a $1,000 suit and speaks in a voice that sounds like it should be selling insurance. I don't have anything that belongs to you, Mr. Costanos. Eddie's smile widens, but it doesn't reach his eyes. His eyes are dead like a shark's eyes. Oh, but you do, Delilah. May I call you Delilah? You have 3 boys living in your home. Danny, Mike, and Timmy. Those boys are my legal wards, and I've come to collect them. Those boys aren't anybody's property. They're my sons. Your sons? Eddie laughs, and the sound makes Delilah's blood run cold. According to what legal document? Did you adopt them through proper channels? Do you have custody papers? Or did you just take 3 vulnerable children off the streets without following any legal procedures? The questions hit like arrows because Delilah knows he's right. In her rush to save the boys, to give them love and stability, she never thought about the legal implications. She never officially adopted them. She never went through the system. In the eyes of the law, she's just a woman who took in 3 children without permission. I saved them, she says, her voice stronger than she feels. They were starving and scared, and they were mine, Eddie interrupts, and for just a moment, his mask slips. The pleasant businessman facade falls away, and Delilah sees the monster underneath. I had legal guardianship. I was their appointed caretaker, and you stole them from me. Caretaker? Delilah can't help herself. The word comes out like an accusation. Is that what you call someone who beats children? Someone who starves them? Someone who uses them for... Careful, Delilah. Eddie's voice drops to a whisper, but it carries more threat than any shout. Be very careful about making accusations you can't prove, especially accusations against someone with very expensive lawyers and very important friends. He reaches into his jacket, and for a terrifying moment, Delilah thinks he's reaching for a weapon. But what he pulls out is worse than a gun. It's a manila envelope thick with official-looking documents. These are the original custody papers, he says, holding them just out of her reach. Signed by a judge, filed with the state, completely legal and binding. Those boys are my responsibility, and I want them back. They're not going anywhere with you. Oh, but they are. You see, I'm not an unreasonable man. I understand that you've probably grown attached to them. I understand that this might be difficult for you. So I'm prepared to make this transition easier. He reaches into his other pocket and pulls out another envelope. This one is smaller, but somehow more menacing. $25,000 cash. More money than you've probably ever seen at one time. All you have to do is pack up their belongings and bring them to me. Tonight. $25,000. Delilah's mind reels. That's more than she makes in a year at both her jobs combined. That's enough money to pay off every bill, to get a better apartment, to finally stop living paycheck to paycheck. It's a fortune by her standards. But then she thinks about Danny at his new school, thriving for the first time in his life. She thinks about Mike's dreams of becoming a doctor. She thinks about Timmy's brilliant mind creating miracles with computers. She thinks about bedtime stories and homework help and birthday cakes made from scratch because that's all they could afford. Without taking her eyes off Eddie's face, Delilah reaches out and takes the envelope full of money. For a moment, Eddie's smile becomes genuine. He thinks he's won. He thinks he's figured out her price. But instead of opening the envelope, Delilah tears it in half. Then she tears the halves in half. Then she keeps tearing until $25,000 in cash becomes confetti scattered on the sidewalk. Those boys are not for sale, Mr. Costanos. Not for $25,000, not for $1 million, not for anything. They are my sons, and they're staying with me. The transformation in Eddie's face is terrifying. The pleasant businessman vanishes completely, replaced by something that looks barely human. His eyes narrow to slits, his jaw tightens, and when he speaks, his voice carries the promise of violence. You have no idea what you just done, Delilah. You have no idea who you're dealing with or what I'm capable of. I try to do this the easy way, try to be reasonable, try to compensate you for your temporary care of my property. But you've just made this very, very difficult for yourself. Get away from me. Oh, I'll go. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. You see, those boys belong to me, and I always collect what's mine. Always. And when I do collect them, and I will, you're going to wish you'd taken the money and walked away. Eddie straightens his tie, smooths down his hair, and transforms back into the perfect businessman. But the threat hangs in the air between them like poison gas. Have a pleasant evening, Delilah. Enjoy your family time while you still can. He walks away, but his words echo in Delilah's mind as she watches him disappear around the corner. This isn't some random predator who happened to cross their path. This is a man with resources, connections, and a kind of cold intelligence that makes him infinitely dangerous. That night, Delilah sits the boys down for the hardest conversation of their lives as a family. There's something I need to tell y'all about a man named Eddie Costanos. The reaction is immediate and heartbreaking. Danny goes rigid, every muscle in his body tensing for fight or flight. Mike starts trembling, and Timmy begins crying before she's even finished a sentence. He found us, Danny whispers. I knew this was too good to be true. I knew he'd find us eventually. Boys, listen to me. Nothing is going to happen to this family. I won't let it. You don't understand, Mama, Mike says, his voice shaking. Mr. Eddie, he's not like other grown-ups. He's got friends everywhere. Police friends, judge friends, social worker friends. When he wants something, he gets it. What did he do to y'all? Delilah asks gently, though she's not sure she wants to know the answer. The boys look at each other, and she can see years of trauma and terror in their eyes. Finally, Danny speaks. He had other kids, lots of other kids. He said we were his investment portfolio. Whatever that means, he made us do things, bad things. And if we said no or tried to run, he hurt us. Or he hurt the little ones to make the big ones behave. Delilah's hands clench into fists. What kind of things? Stealing mostly, Mike whispers. We were small, so we could get into places adults couldn't. He'd send us into stores or houses, and we had to take whatever he told us to take. And if we got caught, Timmy adds, he said it was his fault because kids don't go to real jail. He said the police would just feel sorry for us and let us go, and then we'd go right back to him. But it wasn't just stealing. Danny continues, and his voice gets even quieter. Sometimes there were parties, rich people parties, and they wanted to meet us, wanted to be alone with us. And Mr. Eddie said if we didn't smile and be nice, he'd make sure we never saw each other again. The room falls silent, except for the sound of Timmy's quiet sobbing. Delilah feels sick to her stomach, but also filled with rage so pure and hot that it threatens to consume her entirely. This monster didn't just abuse her boys. He trafficked them, used them, sold their innocence to the highest bidder. That's never happening again, she says, and her voice carries a conviction that makes all three boys look up at her. Never. Do you hear me? I will die before I let that man touch any of you again. But, Mama, Danny says, you don't know what he can do. He's got papers that say we belong to him. He's got lawyers and judges and... I don't care if he's got the President of the United States on speed dial. You boys are mine now, and I protect what's mine. Over the next several weeks, Eddie's campaign of terror escalates systematically and methodically. It starts with more phone calls, but now the voice on the other end isn't silent. Now it whispers threats in graphic detail about what's going to happen to Delilah and her boys. Then the surveillance becomes obvious and menacing. Black cars with tinted windows park outside their building for hours at a time. Men in expensive suits show up at the grocery store where Delilah works, asking questions about her schedule, her habits, her finances. The psychological warfare is perhaps the most devastating. Photos start peering under their door. Photos of the boys walking to school, play in the park, sitting in their classroom. The message is clear. We can reach them anywhere, anytime. But Eddie's masterstroke comes when official-looking people start showing up at their door. Social workers with badge numbers that don't check out. Police officers asking about reports of child neglect. School officials questioning whether a single mother can properly care for 3 boys. Each visit is carefully orchestrated to look legitimate, while gradually building a case that Delilah is an unfit guardian. And because she never legally adopted the boys, She has no official standing to fight back against the accusations. The breaking point comes on a Friday evening when Delilah returns from work to find Danny with a split lip and Mike with a bruised cheek. "What happened?" she demands, her hands shaking as she examines her injuries. "Some older kids at school." Danny lies, but Delilah can see the truth in his eyes. "It's nothing, Mama. Just some bullies." But Timmy, who's never learned to lie effectively, blurts out the truth. "The man in the nice car said he was going to take us for ice cream, but Danny told him no. So his friends held Mike while he hit Danny." The room goes silent. Eddie isn't just watching them anymore. He's actively hunting them. He's using adult men to intimidate and assault children in broad daylight, probably calculating that they're too scared to report it to authorities who might already be in his pocket. That night, after she tucks the boys into bed with extra hugs and promises that everything will be okay, Delilah sits in her kitchen and faces a terrible truth. She's outgunned, outmanned, and outmaneuvered. Eddie has resources she can't match, connections she doesn't have, and a willingness to hurt children that she can't comprehend. But she also has something he doesn't understand, a mother's love and a mother's fury. And sometimes that's enough to move mountains. She picks up the phone and dials a number she hasn't called in over a year. "Marcus," she says when her brother-in-law answers. "I need help, and I need it now." Marcus Peterson, her late husband's younger brother, is everything Eddie probably expects black men in their neighborhood to be. But he's also a Marine veteran with connections Eddie doesn't know about. He's been staying away from Delilah and the boys, not wanting to complicate their new family dynamic. But when she explains what's happening, his response is immediate and fierce. "Pack a bag for each of the boys. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus, I can't run. These are my babies, and this is our home. Delilah, you listen to me. What you're describing isn't some random criminal. This sounds like organized crime, maybe human trafficking. If this Eddie character has the kind of connections you're talking about, then you're not just fighting one man. You're fighting a network. And networks have resources that can destroy you. So what am I supposed to do? Give up? Let him take my boys? No. You're going to disappear for a few days while I make some calls and figure out exactly what we're dealing with. I still got friends in various places, people who owe me favors. Let me see what I can find out about this Eddie Costanos." But as Delilah hangs up the phone, she has a terrible feeling that running isn't going to solve this problem. Eddie isn't the type of man who gives up, and he's made it clear that he sees the boys as his property. Sooner or later, she's going to have to face him directly. She just doesn't know yet that when that confrontation comes, it's going to cost her everything she's worked for and threaten to destroy the family she's died to protect. The storm is coming, and it's got Eddie Costanos written all over it. But if you think you know how this is going to end, think again. Because the next act is going to reveal truths that will make everything you thought you knew about this story completely wrong. Make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next is going to take you to places you never expected. And the showdown between Delilah and Eddie is going to leave you on the edge of your seat, begging for answers. If you thought Eddie Costanos was terrifying before, you haven't seen anything yet. What happens next is going to be the most intense, heart-stopping 20 minutes of this entire story. And I'm warning you right now, some of you might need to pause this video and take a breath. Because what Eddie does to this family is going to make you question everything you think you know about justice, protection, and how far evil will go to get what it wants. But first, smash that like button if your heart is already racing, because we're about to witness a showdown that will determine the fate of 4 people who fought so hard to stay together. And make sure you stay until the very end of this act, because the twist that's coming will leave you speechless. Also, I want you to comment below and tell me, have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your safety and protecting someone you love? Because that's exactly the impossible choice Delilah is about to face. Marcus Peterson arrives at Delilah's apartment at exactly 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And the man who walks through her door is nothing like the grief-stricken brother-in-law she remembered from her husband's funeral. This Marcus moves with military precision, his eyes constantly scanning for threats, his voice carrying the kind of authority that comes from leading men in combat. "Pack light," he tells the boys, who are awake despite the late hour. None of them have been sleeping well since Eddie's threat started escalating. 1 bag each. Only what you absolutely need. "Where are we going, Uncle Marcus?" Danny asks. Even at 13, he's developed the protective instincts that make him question every adult's motives. Somewhere safe while we figure out how to deal with this Eddie character permanently. But Marcus's investigation into Eddie Costanos reveals a nightmare far worse than any of them imagined. Eddie isn't just some lone predator with a few corrupt connections. He's a key player in a human trafficking network that spans multiple states, involves dozens of officials, and has been operating for over a decade. Delilah, this man you're dealing with, Marcus explains as they sit in a safe house across town. He's got federal judges on his payroll, police commissioners, social workers, even some FBI agents. The boys weren't just his victims. They were inventory in a business that makes millions of dollars a year selling children to monsters. The scope of it is overwhelming. How do you fight something that big? How do you protect 3 children from an organization that has tentacles reaching into every level of government and law enforcement? So, what are you saying? Delilah asks that we can't fight him? That I should just give up my boys? I'm saying we need to be smart about this. We need evidence. Real evidence. The kind that even corrupt officials can't ignore or make disappear. But Eddie isn't willing to wait for them to build a case. 3 days after they go into hiding, he makes his move in the most calculated, vicious way possible. The call comes on Danny's cell phone, a cheap prepaid phone Marcus bought, so the boys could still feel connected to their normal lives. The voice on the other end isn't Eddie's smooth businessman tone. It's panicked, terrified, obviously a child. Danny? Danny, is this you? Who is this? It's Sarah. Sarah from the group home, before you came to live with Mr. Eddie. He's got me, Danny. He's got me and 2 other kids. And he says if you don't come back, he's gonna hurt us real bad. Danny's face goes white. Sarah was like a little sister to all 3 boys during their brief time in the group home. She's only 6 years old, with pigtails and a stuffed rabbit she carries everywhere. Where are you, Sarah? I don't know. Someplace with water and big boats. It smells like fish and there are seagulls everywhere. Danny, I'm scared. He says you and Mike and Timmy gotta come back or he's gonna throw me in the water. The line goes dead. Danny immediately tells Marcus and Delilah what he heard, and Marcus's face becomes grim. Navy Pier. He's got them at Navy Pier. It's isolated enough that he can control the situation, but public enough that it looks like a normal family meeting if anyone's watching. It's a trap, Delilah says immediately. He knows we'll come for Sarah. Of course it's a trap, but what choice do we have? That man has a 6-year-old girl, and he's threatening to kill her if we don't show up. Then we call the police. Marcus shakes his head sadly. Delilah, we've been through this. How many police do you think Eddie owns? How do we know the first officer we call won't tip him off that we're coming? How do we know they won't arrest you for kidnapping the boys before we even get close to helping Sarah? It's Danny who makes a decision that changes everything. We go. We have to go. Sarah's there because of us. If something happens to her because we didn't try to save her, I'll never forgive myself. Danny, baby, you don't understand what you're saying. This man will kill us all before he lets us walk away. Maybe, but at least we'll die trying to save an innocent little girl. Isn't that what you taught us, Mama? That we fight for people who can't fight for themselves. The wisdom and courage in her 13-year-old son's voice breaks Delilah's heart and fills her with pride at the same time. These boys have learned the lessons she tried to teach them almost too well. Marcus spends the next 4 hours planning their approach with military precision. He's got contacts who can provide equipment, backup, and surveillance. But Eddie calls again before they can put any plan into action. Delilah Peterson, I believe you have something that belongs to me. This time, Eddie's voice is cold, businesslike, stripped of any pretense of civility. Navy Pier. Dock 47. Midnight. You bring my boys. I give you the girl. Simple transaction. How do I know you won't hurt her? You don't. But I guarantee you this. If you're not there with Danny, Mike, and Timmy at exactly midnight, little Sarah's going to learn what happens to children who disappoint me. And I promise you, Delilah, her lessons will be very, very painful. And if I bring them, what then? Then you walk away with Sarah, and I disappear with my property. You never see the boys again, but they live. Sarah lives. Everyone walks away breathing. It's really the best deal you're going to get. The line goes dead, leaving Delilah staring at the phone with hands that shake uncontrollably. Outside, the weather has turned vicious. The kind of late October storm that turns the city into a war zone of wind and rain. It's as if nature itself is reflecting the chaos that's about to unfold. We're not doing this. Marcus says immediately, it's suicide. He's not planning to let any of you walk away alive. But the boys have already made their decision. Without consulting the adults, they've already started getting dressed, putting on their coats, preparing to face whatever hell Eddie has planned for them. You can't stop us, Uncle Marcus, Mike says with quiet determination. That little girl is in danger because of us, because we escaped and left other kids behind. If we don't try to save her, how are we any better than the people who hurt us? And Timmy, barely 9 years old but already possesses startling moral clarity, adds, "Besides, runaway just means he'll keep chasing us forever. At least this way, we find out how the story ends." The drive to Navy Pier takes place in almost complete silence, broken only by the sound of rain hammering against the car windows and the occasional rumble of thunder that seems to shake the earth itself. Each of them is lost in their own thoughts, their own fears, their own desperate hopes that somehow they'll all survive the next few hours. Marcus has called in every favor he has, mobilized every contact who owes him a debt. Somewhere in the darkness around Navy Pier, federal agents who still believe in justice are positioning themselves. Police officers who haven't been bought by Eddie's organization are preparing to move in. But all of that is contingent on getting enough evidence to make arrests stick, and that means walking into Eddie's trap and hoping they live long enough for cavalry to arrive. Navy Pier at midnight, in a thunderstorm, is the stuff of nightmares. The normally crowded tourist attraction is completely deserted, just empty walkways stretching into darkness, with the black water of Lake Michigan churning violently beyond the railings. The sound of waves crashing against the pier mingles with a howling wind to create a symphony of menace that sets everyone's nerves on edge. Dock 47 is at the far end of the pier, isolated from any potential witnesses or help. As they approach, they can see figures moving in the shadows. Eddie's men, positioned to cut off any escape routes. This isn't just a meeting. It's an execution waiting to happen. Eddie stands in the center of the dock, like a spider in the center of his web, perfectly calm despite the chaos of the storm around him. He's wearing an expensive raincoat that probably costs more than Delilah makes in a month, and his hair is perfectly styled despite the wind. Even in the midst of planning murder, the man is vain enough to care about his appearance. Next to him, barely visible in the darkness, a small figure huddles against the rain. Sarah, just as Danny described her, 6 years old, clutching her stuffed rabbit, shivering with cold and terror. Punctual. I appreciate that in business associates. Eddie calls out as they approach. His voice carries easily over the storm, suggesting this is a man accustomed to being heard even in chaos. "Let the girl go," Delilah shouts back. "I brought your boys. Now keep your word." Eddie laughs, and the sound is somehow more chilling than the wind. "My word? Oh. Delilah, you still don't understand what kind of man you're dealing with, do you? I'm not a man of my word. I'm a man of profit. And the profit in this situation comes from taking back my property and eliminating the people who tried to steal it from me." That's when Delilah sees the other figures emerging from the shadows. Not just Eddie's usual thugs, but men in official-looking uniforms. Police badges gleaming in the dim light. Social workers with clipboards and fake concerned expressions. "You see," Eddie continues, his voice taking on the tone of a teacher, explaining a simple concept to slow students. "I've told these concerned public servants that you've been abusing these poor children, that you've been using them for illegal activities, that tonight you brought them here to sell them to human traffickers, namely me. The trap is even more sophisticated than they realized. Eddie hasn't just planned to kill them. He's planned to frame Delilah as a criminal while positioning himself as a hero trying to rescue abused children. The corrupt officials he's brought will swear they witnessed Delilah attempting to sell the boys, giving Eddie complete legal cover for whatever happens next. The paperwork is already filed," one of the fake social workers adds. "Emergency custody transfer, signed by a judge. These children are being removed from an abusive situation and returned to their legal guardian." "Like hell they are," Marcus growls, stepping forward. But immediately, 3 men with guns emerge from concealment, their weapons trained on him. "Ah, Marcus Peterson, the war hero brother-in-law. I was wondering when you'd show up. Don't worry, I have special plans for you two. Unfortunately, you're going to resist arrest and force these officers to use deadly force. Very tragic, very unavoidable." That's when the first miracle happens. Danny steps forward, directly into the line of fire, his young voice cutting through the storm with surprising authority. "Mr. Eddie, before you kill us all, don't you want to hear about the recordings?" Eddie's confident smile falters for the first time. "What recordings?" "The ones Timmy's been making every time you called us. The ones that have your voice threatening to hurt children, to kill Mama Delilah, to throw Sarah in the lake. The ones that are automatically uploading to 3 different cloud servers every time you say something incriminating." Timmy steps forward, holding up a small digital device that's been hidden in his jacket. Even at 9 years old, his technical brilliance has been working against Eddie from the beginning, documenting every threat, every illegal statement. every piece of evidence that could bring down the entire network. You little. Eddie starts forward, but Marcus moves faster, putting himself between Eddie and the boys. There's more, Mike adds, his healer's instincts making him want to save everyone, even their enemies. Timmy also hacked into your computer system. We've got records of money transfers, lists of other kids, names of all the officials you've been bribing. Everything. The corruption runs so deep that even some of Eddie's own men look nervous when they hear this. They sign up to hurt a poor black woman, and some kids, not to be exposed as part of a federal conspiracy that could put them all in prison for life. Eddie's mask finally comes completely off. The businessman, the smooth operator, the man who always stays in control, all of it disappears, leaving behind something feral and desperate and infinitely dangerous. You think you're clever? He screams over the storm. You think some recordings and computer files are going to save you? I own people in the FBI. I own federal judges. I own people so high up in the government that your little evidence will disappear before it ever sees the light of day. But even as he's screaming, sirens are beginning to wail in the distance. Real sirens. The kind that belong to federal agents who haven't been bought, who still believe in justice, who've been waiting for exactly this kind of evidence to move against a network they've been investigating for years. Marcus's contacts have come through. The cavalry is coming. But Eddie isn't going down without a fight. And what happens next is going to be burned into memory of everyone who survives it. If I can't have those boys, Eddie snarls, pulling a gun from inside his expensive coat, then nobody can. And if I'm going down, I'm taking all of you with me. The next 30 seconds unfold like a nightmare in slow motion. Eddie swings a gun toward Danny, the boy who dared to defy him, the boy who started this whole chain of rebellion. But Delilah moves faster than should be humanly possible, throwing herself between the gun and her son. The first shot echoes across the water like thunder, and Delilah staggers but doesn't fall. The bullet caught her in the shoulder, spinning her around but not stopping her maternal instincts. "Run!" she screams at the boys. "All of you run." But the boys don't run. Danny launches himself at Eddie, trying to wrestle the gun away from him. Mike grabs Sarah, pulling the terrified little girl toward what he hopes is safety. And Timmy, brilliant, quiet Timmy, does something that changes everything. He activates a signal beacon that Marcus gave him, sending their exact location to every federal agent within 50 miles, along with a live audio feed of everything that's happening on the dock. Eddie's second shot goes wild as Danny grapples with him, the bullet disappearing into the storm-tossed lake. But Eddie is bigger, stronger, and motivated by decades of violence and cruelty. He throws Danny off him like a rag doll, sending the 13-year-old boy crashing into a wooden crate hard enough to knock the wind out of him. You want to be heroes? Eddie screams, his voice barely human now. Let me show you what happens to heroes. He turns a gun toward Mike and Sarah, but Marcus is already moving. The Marine veteran covers the distance between them in 3 strides, tackling Eddie around the waist and sending both of them crashing toward the edge of the dock. The fight that follows is brutal and primitive. 2 men locked in mortal combat, while children watch in terror, and the storm rages around them. Marcus has training and experience. But Eddie has desperation, and the kind of vicious cunning that comes from a lifetime of hurting the innocent. They roll across the wet dock, each trying to gain control of the gun, each knowing that the first mistake will be fatal. Eddie manages to get on top and presses the barrel of the gun against Marcus's chest. But before he can pull the trigger, Delilah, bleeding heavily from her shoulder wound, brings a piece of broken dock railing down on the back of his head. Eddie collapses, the gun skittering away across the wet planks. For a moment, everyone thinks it's over. The boys start to move toward their family, believing they've survived the nightmare. But Eddie Costanos is like a movie monster. Just when you think he's dead, he comes back for one final scare. As the federal agents' boats begin to appear in the distance, their searchlights cutting through the storm, Eddie pulls himself to his feet with blood streaming down his face and pure hatred burning in his eyes. "If I can't have them," he whispers, but his voice carries clearly in the sudden lull between thunder crashes, "then they can have the lake." He lunges not for the gun, but for Timmy, the smallest, the most vulnerable, the one whose technical genius has just destroyed Eddie's entire operation. His plan is simple and horrible. Throw the child into the churning waters of Lake Michigan, where the storm and the darkness will make rescue impossible. But Danny and Mike move as one, their brotherly bond transcending fear and self-preservation. Danny tackles Eddie low, while Mike pulls Timmy out of reach, and all 3 of them go down in a tangle of limbs and desperate struggles. In the confusion, Eddie's hand finds another weapon, a knife from his belt, probably intended for close quarters work. He slashes wildly, catching Mike across the forearm and drawing a scream of pain from a gentle boy who only wanted to heal people. That's when Delilah Peterson, bleeding and battered but still fighting for her children, makes a decision that will haunt her for the next 25 years. She picks up Eddie's gun. "Get away from my babies." Her voice is quiet, almost conversational, but it carries more authority than Eddie's screaming ever did. This isn't a woman making threats. This is a mother stating facts. Eddie looks up from where he struggled with the boys, and for the first time in the entire confrontation, he looks genuinely afraid, because he sees something in Delilah's eyes that he recognizes. The same cold willingness to do whatever it takes that has driven his own career violence. "You don't have it in you," he says, but his voice wavers with uncertainty. "You're not a killer, Delilah. You're a caregiver, a nurturer. You save lives, you don't take them." "You're right," Delilah agrees, her finger tightening on the trigger. "I'm not a killer, but I'm a mother, and mothers do whatever it takes to protect their children." The standoff lasts exactly 7 seconds. 7 seconds during which the entire future hangs in the balance. 7 seconds during which Delilah weighs the life of a monster against the safety of her children. The decision is made when Eddie feints toward Timmy again, testing whether Delilah will actually shoot. She fires once, the bullet taking him in the chest and spinning him away from the boys. He staggers backward, a look of surprise and indignation on his face, as if he can't believe that his victim has finally fought back. "You shot me," he says, his voice filled with childlike bewilderment. "You actually shot me?" "Yes," Delilah replies simply. "And I'll shoot you again if you take one more step toward my sons." But Eddie doesn't get the chance to take another step. The combination of blood loss from Delilah's blow to his head and the gunshot wound to his chest finally catches up with him. He takes one step backward, then another, his coordination failing him. The edge of the dock is slick with rain and spray from the choppy lake. Eddie's expensive shoes, designed for boardrooms rather than life-or-death struggles, can't find purchase on the wet planks. He falls backward into Lake Michigan with a splash that's almost lost in the sound of the storm. For a moment, everyone on the dock stands frozen, waiting to see if he'll surface. The searchlights from the approaching federal boats sweep across the water, looking for any sign of movement. But the lake is dark and angry, and Eddie Costanos, master manipulator, child trafficker, and destroyer of innocence, disappears beneath the waves without a trace. The federal agents who arrive 10 minutes later find a scene that looks like a war zone. Delilah bleeding from a gunshot wound, Marcus unconscious from his fight with Eddie, Mike bleeding from knife cuts, Danny bruised and battered, Timmy in shock, and Lil Sarah traumatized but alive. They also find enough evidence to dismantle a human trafficking network that spans 3 states and involves dozens of corrupt officials. Timmy's recordings and computer files provide the roadmap for the largest bust of its kind in FBI history. But for Delilah, none of that matters in the moment. All that matters is that her boys are alive, that Sarah's safe, and that the monster who haunted their dreams is gone forever. What she doesn't know, what none of them know, is that Eddie's network won't die with him. What she doesn't know is that there are people even more powerful than Eddie who see her family's survival as a threat to their entire operation. What she doesn't know is that the victory they just won will turn into a 25-year nightmare of false accusations, planted evidence, and systematic persecution designed to destroy everything she's fought to build. Because you see, when you defeat a monster, you don't just celebrate. You prepare for the monster's friends to come looking for revenge. And Eddie's friends are patient, powerful, and absolutely ruthless in their pursuit of payback. And that's where part 1 ends. Delilah, bleeding and framed, dragged away in handcuffs, while the boys vanish into the storm. But this is far from the end. 25 years later, their paths collide again in ways you will not believe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell and stay tuned, because part 2 is where the past comes roaring back, secrets unravel, and justice hangs by a thread. You don't want to miss it.